Gravy Bones is the newest addition to the Armory Deck product line. It not only features a brand new hero of the brand new Necromancer class, but it's also the first classic constructed and Blitz hybrid deck. In this video, I want to take a look at this product as a whole, as well as the deck's playability, to see if it's worth the pickup. For transparency's sake, the copy I'm using for this video was sent to me by LSS for review, but if you're worried that this is going to impact my opinions, well, I had actually already pre-ordered one before they sent it to me, so while this version was free, I still spent my own money on it, so everything I'm going to say in this video is my genuine, honest review of the Gravy Bones Armory Deck. The Gravy Bones Armory Deck retails between $40 and $60 depending on where you are in the world, and it comes in a sleek box with the hero front and center with some fun little blurbs on the back. Opening it up, you'll find that it comes with the deck and a how to play guide? Oh, hell yeah, baby! Now this is what I'm talking about. I've done a couple Armory Deck reviews in the past, and the lack of a how to play guide was one of my biggest criticisms, so I am incredibly happy to see that there is finally one included with the deck. Flesh and Blood is a complicated game, and having a paper guide to help you when you play is super helpful. While it's just a simple fold-out pamphlet, this how to play guide is packed with information from how to set up a game, to the turn phases, card and arena layouts, as well as detailed descriptions of the different rules and mechanics on the back. This single little piece of paper adds so much value to the product on its own for any brand new player. While there's still the QR code to the website you can use, it's no longer necessary just to play the deck for the first time. Now, you've got a guide that you can open and reference when you need to, instead of having to sit and scroll on your phone. This is a huge improvement to Armory decks as a whole, although I do have some suggestions about how to improve on this a bit more. But I'm gonna go through the deck itself first, then return to this after. Opening up the deck, you'll find a rainbow foil young hero, a full rainbow foil set of equipment, a non-foil offhand compass, no weapon, yes that's correct, Gravy Bones does not have a weapon at all, and then the deck itself. Because this is a hybrid deck, these are split into two halves, with the Blitz deck being first. After that, there's some deck lists and tokens, two of which have the Gravy Bones art and a QR code, and then there's a non-foil adult Gravy Bones with the rest of the deck for classic constructed. One cool thing they've done here is actually put CC at the bottom of the 20 cards not in the Blitz version so that you can have an easier time separating them. As for the deck itself, well, I have to say there is a lot of value in it, which is good because if you want to play Gravy Bones, you're pretty much gonna have to pick one of these up. Not only are the head, chest, and legs exclusive to this deck, but Anka, Sawbones, Oyston, Loot the Arsenal, and Loot the Hold are also Armory Deck exclusives. Well, technically the allies are in High Seas, but they're only as marvels, so for most people, this is where you'll get your copies. The deck also contains a lot of staple commons and rares from High Seas that work as the deck's engine, namely things like Portside Exchange, Jittery Bones Blue, and Murderous Rabble. But it also contains a few generic staples like Scar for a Scar, 2 time stat potions, and a single copy of Call to the Grave. This one reprint is such an excellent inclusion, as the Rosetta version is sitting at almost $30 at the time of making this video. Including one of these not only works with the strategy as a whole, but does a lot to make the price of this deck worth it. We saw something similar with the previous deck, Max, having a single copy of Heist, and I hope that LSS continues printing a copy of a desired, kind of more expensive card in each of these decks moving forward. Considering that Necromancer is a brand new class to the game, it makes sense that there are also a lot of playable cards exclusive to the Armory deck, as Gravy Bones has a much smaller card pool than pretty much every other class, you know, outside of things like Shapeshifter, Merchant, or Thief. It does mean that you will have to pick up one of these to play the hero fully, but the value is very much here. Well, as long as you paid around MSRP. I am scripting and filming this video on May 30th, the day that this deck releases. Currently, at least on TCG Player, prices for this deck have gone insane. Worst of all, people are actually paying those prices. Now, this isn't the price everywhere. For example, I ordered one from Invasion Inc. here in Canada, and they sold it for $45, and currently on Card Trader, there's a bunch listed for $40 to $50. I don't know what it is with TCG Player in the American market, but please, do not spend $100 on this deck unless you literally cannot find it anywhere else. Maybe this has to do with the US Nationals taking place in a week from now, but unless you need it for that, I would not spend that much money on this deck. But for MSRP, the Gravy Bones Armory Deck is an amazing deal and absolutely worth the pickup from a value standpoint. As for how the deck itself plays out of the box, well, I did indeed play a few games with it and I have some thoughts. However, I did say I wanted to make a suggestion for the how to play guide, so here's what I'm going to do. If you want to hear my thoughts on the guide, continue watching. But if you just want to hear my thoughts on the deck, then I'll put the time code up on the screen right now for you to jump ahead to that. And now your time to skip has passed. So for those of you still here, I have a suggestion for the how to play guide that I think could take it from good to great. The first thing I would do is I would actually turn this how to play into a more generic guide by making a few small changes. First, I would change the hero on the front to Ira or the new Welcome Deck Bravo, and the card on the back to Scar for Scar or something equivalent. Then instead of using this space at the front for lore and this Armory Deck specific construction, I would use the space to detail both a classic constructed and Blitz deck construction with how many cards they each have, but you could still recommend people start with Blitz. What this would do is turn this how to play from being specific to this hero and instead make it applicable to any pre-constructed product, not just the Armory decks. This means that LSS would only have to make one, and barring some rule changes or new mechanics, it wouldn't need to be constantly updated. Of course, you still want this product to have information about the deck it comes with, so this is where I would suggest a second pamphlet. On the separate how to play, you could make it entirely dedicated to the hero strategy and playstyle, noting cards in the deck and how you want to use them. So for example, you could simply explain that Gravy Bones wants to set up allies in his graveyard with cards like Jittery Bones, Portside Exchange, or Tricorn of Saltwater Death. Then you want to play those allies from grave, with the first one getting go again, but also mention the Time Snap potions, which can let you have an even bigger turn. Of course, you'd want to mention Gravy himself and his compass, as well as the importance of gold generation, and with all of that, you would have a really solid guide for anyone picking up this deck for the first time. Because honestly, Gravy Bones is a tough hero to play, and while the current how to play guide is great from a rules and a turn structure perspective, it doesn't really do anything to help you play the strategy that this deck wants to use. And if there was a second pamphlet, this would also make for some space to mention upgrades on the back. The webpage for this deck has a section at the bottom for this, but putting upgrades on the back of a how to play guide with a picture of a High Seas booster box is also a great way to advertise the product without being in your face about it. As it stands though, I am very happy with the inclusion of this how to play guide, and I hope to see one of these in every single Armory deck moving forward, as it really is a necessary piece for these pre-constructed decks. But what matters most, of course, is the deck itself. So suppose it's time to catch up with all those people who skipped to the time code and take a look at how this deck plays out of the box. Playing the Gravy Bones Armory deck was an interesting experience. See, the thing is, this is not only a new hero, but a brand new class entirely. And while I am a filthy illusionist player, and so I know my way around a board state, Gravy was a bit of a head scratcher, but in a good way. Because High Seas hasn't even released yet, I am still personally figuring out how to even play this hero properly, but the challenge of managing your discards and action points with the allies was very fun. Now, I do have to admit, I did not play the Blitz version of this deck. Not only have I not played Blitz in over a year, but I don't even have a Blitz deck, nor do any of my friends. That being said, the deck is the exact same for each format, just with more or less cards, and while I do think that he's better in Classic Constructed due to having more breathing room, the deck can still outvalue opponents in Blitz if you can set up quick enough. So while I haven't tested it, with the inclusion of the Armor and Majestics in the deck, Gravy Bones as a Blitz precon is definitely way more powerful and more valuable than the old Blitz precons by a mile. All this is to say that while I am very happy that this deck serves as a hybrid for both formats, from this point on I will be talking about my game experience in Classic Constructed only. The deck construction is quite solid, with plenty of setup cards, a good amount of allies, and some attacks to round it out. The armor is also quite solid, with the head, chest, and arms helping get allies into the grave, while the boots give go again at the cost of the ally itself. While there are better options for some slots, you certainly will be fine running what the Armory deck comes with. I also rather enjoyed the fact that there's a couple tech pieces in the form of Fiddler's Green and Back Alley Breakline, one gaining you life and the other an action point for being discarded or destroyed from the deck. While I did end up removing them for the upgrades, I did very much enjoy getting to use these one-ofs while playing the pre-constructed deck. With the multiple different allies that you can play in a turn, and with Call to the Grave being included, it makes Gravy Bones feel like a bit of a toolbox deck, having a little bit of everything to try and outvalue the opponent. What I did find a little frustrating, however, was the setup aspect. There are plenty of blues that you can use to get allies in the grave, but I kept having turns where I just didn't have one in hand or on the top of the deck. In a more tuned version of Gravy, you could just lean on his ability to loot by sacrificing gold to dig through your deck, but the problem the precon has is that you only have gold in tipple and port side exchange to generate gold before you get your allies on board. And even with the blues that generate gold when an ally hits, well, you need an ally to hit, and only 2 of them have breakpoints. I did find that once the game got rolling though, this issue went away, so it's mostly only a problem early, so when you're facing aggro decks. Speaking of, the first game I played was against my own semi-tuned Ira, and one weakness the Gravy Bones Armory deck has that I found out right away is heroes that can deal lots of small damage. 3 out of the 6 different allies in this deck have just 1 health, and the one ally who could help with small damage, Sawbones, only has 2 health himself. Against Ira, I had an extremely hard time gaining any ground with the deck, as it was super easy for the Kodachis to clear the board every turn. However, I found that when you have a bit of space to breathe, like against Max, the smaller allies help you swarm the board. This, paired with the red attacks the deck runs, allow you to raise your army from the dead, put them on a boat, and smash your opponent in the mouth for a lot of damage turn after turn. Essentially, the out-of-the-box Gravy Bones deck struggles into heroes that can apply a lot of pressure right away, while it excels when given a bit of space to breathe. Despite being a precon, if you get the chance to use a time snap potion and have a good setup turn, you can absolutely overwhelm your opponent. And if you're behind, cards like Fiddler's Green and Scar for a Scar can help you catch back up a bit. That being said, I do think that the deck lacks a bit on its ability to generate gold for the first few turns, and I wouldn't mind it having some more allies with bigger butts so they don't immediately fold to a thumbtack. And this is where I want to offer a bit of an upgraded list, although I do need to mention 2 things. 1, while I would love to say that these are budget upgrades, it's currently pre-release weekend and prices are a bit nuts right now, and it will take a few weeks to settle. So the upgrades I'm going to suggest are going to mostly be cards from High Seas that are specific to this deck, but I cannot guarantee any pricing. And 2, while I do think that this version I'm about to present to you is stronger than the precon as it uses clear upgrades from the set itself, I cannot promise that every card will be used in the tuned list by the time this hero is more figured out. I'm simply doing the best I can considering the set hasn't officially released yet. That being said, allow me to quickly go over what I think are some solid upgrades and hopefully won't cost you a small fortune. First, I wanted to tackle the allies themselves, namely by adding a few. I've thrown in some Chowders and Chums, as both life gain and redirecting attacks are both solid abilities. Well, Chowder is solid. Chum is literally nuts and can save you from massive turns. I've also put Cutty Sharks in the sideboard, which with 4 health can easily replace an ally like Rigor Mortis into decks that can easily deal 1 damage. To help on the setup side of things, there's Chart the High Seas to get allies into grave and make gold, and then Give No Quarter, which can let you play your higher costed allies for cheap or even free. Tip the Barkeep can replace the Time Snap potions as it blocks 3, has Go Again, puts itself into grave to activate our hero ability, and the Gold Kiss Rum tokens essentially act as a Time Snap at the cost of tapping our hero. I also added some Null Rune, a couple defense reactions with Sink Below and Blood in the Water, and then moved Scar for a Scar to the sideboard for the aggro matchups where you will almost guaranteed be at lower life. Again, I can't promise that every card I've added will be played. For example, maybe Tip the Barkeep ends up not making the cut competitively, but I still think these upgrades do a good job at rounding out the deck and making it quite a bit more flexible and powerful. If you're a newer player, hopefully these changes can help you get on your way to winning your first armory. The Gravy Bones Armory Deck is a huge improvement to the product line as a whole, with the How to Play guide and the format hybridization adding value in small but important ways. This deck is hard to play but packs a punch if you're able to get your allies on board, and the inclusion of some generic staples with one really solid reprint makes this deck a very worthwhile purchase, again at MSRP. While you pretty much have to buy this deck to play a tuned Gravy Bones list, the value is certainly there. I mean, Call to the Grave alone carries the price of it. And if you're looking to use the Armory deck as a base to build off of, it is an exceptional start. Plus, with the upgrades the deck wants most being in the set releasing alongside it, it should be fairly easy to immediately upgrade it, whether by buying packs or singles. At least in theory, considering there's been some supply issues going on with High Seas, but I can't really fault the Armory deck for that. When considering this deck itself, I would say that the Gravy Bones Armory deck is absolutely worth the price. So go on out there, grab a copy, and start slamming corpses into your understandably mortified opponents. I hope you all found this helpful, and thank you very much for watching. I also want to thank LSS for sending me a copy of the deck to review, and I have a feeling the reason they did is specifically because I've been harping on about a how to play guide for like forever now, so I appreciate it. But that will be all for this video. So thanks again, and an extra special and mega thanks to all the patrons. Yep, that's right. If you're a patron, you sometimes get 2 special thanks. Shoutouts to the Giga Chads Geeks first, Elixir, Vinny, John, Ty, Chemical, Bryant, Dark Memoria, and Big Hungry. Then we've got the Alpha Chads, Thomas, Zajima, Aaron, and Approximo. And then there's the Super Chads, Cece, Ben, Yogbadoodles21, Kevin, and Wolf Shadowmancer. Thanks again as always, and stay Chadly, my friends.